Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to our live show for Strange Beasts of China by Yang for the Found in Translation Book Club. I'm Annie, and you can introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is Noelle, and my channel is Noelle 7 Pages.
And I'm Brittany, and my channel is Literarily Smitten.
Okay, awesome. So, our book this month was an interesting one. It was translated from Chinese, and it was kind of more of a series of short stories rather than like a novel. Um, I know that some of us have some very strong opinions about the book. So I'd like to hear your overall impressions of it. What do you think?
Okay, this is going to be interesting. Okay, I I actually enjoyed this book quite a bit, but I also could not seem to read more than like 30 pages at a time. Like I definitely had to take it in many small chunks.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas I knew from when this was picked, I was just like, I have a sneaking suspicion this was not going to be for me just because of the genre. Um, and so I was going into it a little bit nervous. And I will say that I actually, like, without giving spoilers, thought the ending was really fascinating. But overall, I was very confused for the majority of the book and it was like a reading experience that for me personally wasn't the greatest. So I did not end up giving it that high of a rating. But I could definitely see its merits. It was just a case of like the subject matter to me wasn't something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think I rated it 4 stars on Goodreads, but it was more of like a 3.5 for me because I definitely agree it was definitely really confusing. Um,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I don't really remember that much of it, which like I enjoyed it while I was reading it.
Hmm.
Like I remember enjoying it, but I don't actually remember that much of what actually happened. So I guess it didn't make like that big of an impression on me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I liked it though. I think it was a pretty interesting concept. Like all those different beasts were really weird. Like what did they have? The laughing beasts or the beasts that
Yeah.
like couldn't smile or they would die
Hmm.
or something like
Yeah.
that. Like yeah, I feel like maybe there was something like some kind of metaphor maybe that was lost in translation.
Yeah. I kept thinking that like the beasts themselves had to be like some sort of almost allegorical type creatures that I just like you said, I think in translation it maybe becomes less apparent. Um and
Yeah.
and this was the first time too of the books that we've read that I actually felt like I didn't think that the translation was as smooth or as like streamlined as some of the others. Like when we read Breasts and Eggs, I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it felt and flowed very well. Whereas this one, I couldn't I couldn't pinpoint it, but maybe there was just something in the cadence or the rhythm of the language itself that I was just like, something here is not sitting right with me, and I can't figure out why.
Yeah. And Jen Reeds agrees. Like, yeah, the different beasts. There was definitely some meaning there that I did not get. um, yeah. I actually, because I didn't remember a lot of the book, right before we started this, I was reading an article about the book. And one of the people, let me see if I can find it again. She said she speaks Chinese, and she said that the translation was not that great,
Huh.
apparently. She said that there were a lot of things that would go over like non-Chinese speakers' heads, like some of the
Um,
names. She
Yeah.
said like there was a lot of um, instances where it goes back to religion or like classical Chinese like history and stuff that we would not have any idea about, and that like
Mhm.
wasn't explained or even in footnotes
Right.
by the translator. So yeah, what does Jen say? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. um, it was an interesting concept, like beasts living among humans in this weird city.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do feel like I missed a lot.
Okay, it's funny because I felt like that was part of the charm of it for me. Like, I rated this a very solid 4 stars, I think. Even if it's not gonna like stick with me forever, I felt like I had a grand old time like reading it in parts and like chewing on it as I went. And there were so many parts, like at the beginning of every chapter followed a formula, or every story where it was like, this is the beast and this is
Mm.
what they look like. Otherwise, they are no different from human beings. This is the kind of food that they eat. And it starts very almost clinical and then somehow devolves into like chaos every time. And it becomes this mirror to what's going on in our zoologist life at the same time. But I found kind of the confusion. I was just along for the ride. It didn't really bother me, which is weird because usually that really bothers me, and I like acknowledged like I'm confused and I'm okay with that. And I don't know what the difference was with this book from others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's valid. Yeah, I mean, did any of you think that any one chapter or short story kind of stick out to you?
What was the name of that beast? It was the ones that they kept
Oh,
the,
the
the
heart sick
like
beasts.
yes, the
Yeah.
heart sick beast. That was exactly the ones I was thinking about. They stuck out to me, and there was another one too, but I think the other one was because it was kind of towards the end of the book, so it's the freshest in my mind. But
Mhm.
definitely the heart sick beast. I'm like, I have my copy of the book, so I'm trying to like
Oh,
find it.
nice.
Yeah.
Trying. Where is it? I think the prime beast too.
Prime Beast
Mhm.
was really cool.
Yeah.
I really liked the concept of the flourishing beasts, but that was like my least favorite story. The flourishing beasts was like the ones where they like grow from plants, and then when they die
Hmm.
they
Oh,
have to like
yes.
bury them again.
Yeah.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool, but the story was like creepy and weird, and I didn't like that one.
I mean, I
Mm.
felt like all of the stories were creepy and weird though.
Yeah, a
Like,
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm like pulling up the heart sick beast right now
That
because
one was wacky.
that one was really wacky, but I think what I wasn't expecting with this book was for it to be kind of as violent in places as it actually ended up being. Um, like I was not expecting that going into the book. So the first time it happened, I was like, oh, okay, oh, and then it just like you just have more of it happening. That kind of took me by surprise. I did not, from like anything I had read, kind of going into the book, like
Yeah.
expect that. Like I saw no mention of it anywhere, and I'm awful with trigger warnings. I tend to not look at them, but this was definitely a book that I think would like for some readers would have benefited from a little bit more preparation.
Yeah, there
Mm.
was some violence for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Chloe agrees that they were all creepy and weird.
I don't know. And like when it serves a purpose, like for the story, like I'm okay with creepy and weird in a book, but I just felt like the flourishing beast story didn't really do much for me.
They get like turned into furniture, right?
Yeah, like the purest form of a flourishing beast is if they don't have the like creepy worms infesting them. So then they're free of pests, and then they can be
Ugh.
chopped down and turned into a piece of furniture, and then they're immortal. So it was like that story. She like
Which that really confused me because I was just like, so is it their essence that's immortal because they've been turned into a piece of furniture? Because I'm like, furniture is not immortal. Like I could burn a chair. Like,
well, yeah,
Mm.
that's what she did. She like broke the chair at the end of the
yeah.
story.
So I'm just like, so it was weird. It was in like I liked where it started, didn't necessarily like where that one, like the journey that one took me on. I was not as big of a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was very strange. I really liked the chapter where you learn more about the narrator. Maybe that is Heartsick Beasts.
I
Is
think it was
that
like Heartsick and Prime Beasts.
Yeah.
We learned a lot about her and her professor and her parents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that was Prime Beast actually. That they isn't there like that the story. Ooh, I don't know what is popping off on
I
my
think
computer. But was it
you're right.
Prime
It
Beast
was Prime. Yeah.
where there was like she was writing the short story or something? Was that in that section?
I think that was Prime. Yeah, where they like
Yeah.
her friend is like saying, "Oh, like don't you need to write your story?" Or maybe it's her like publisher or something being like,
Yeah.
"You need to just write this one." And then that's like the one chapter where we actually get to read that story. And then it turns out that it's like her own history.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. On a similar note, Chloe mentions the dialogue of like the professor calling her worthless and lame. What do we think about that?
I mean, as a character thing, I didn't feel like it didn't take away from the book for me. It's just like, oh, okay, that guy's just kind of a piece of work.
Yeah.
But it could also feel that it was that could have just been hard to translate. Some of those things really stuck out to me in the rest of the dialogue or the rest of the scene, where it would be what's the word I'm trying to find? It felt very out of place sometimes, where
Mhm.
like it was more extreme than it was intended.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't
Even
really
though
bother me though.
yeah, I mean, I didn't like it didn't stand out to me like, "Oh, like, what is wrong with this?" At
Yeah.
the time I was listening to it, but yeah, I think just the translation in and of itself, like you said, didn't really flow very well.
Yeah.
And it definitely read like it was translated.
Maybe that's what
Um,
it is to me. Like it what like there was parts of it that you could sense maybe like there was like something you were missing in the reading, but there was nowhere for you to actually like get it from because as you mentioned there were like no footnotes for things
mhm,
that had to do with more like Chinese history or more classical Chinese that if you were not a native speaker you wouldn't know. It would kind of be the equivalent of reading like a Tolstoy novel and not being given the footnotes, where it's just like if you don't have the history or like any sort of cultural context for it, you're not gonna know what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely could have benefited from some context or footnotes in a lot of times.
Yeah, I think so. And to me, I don't know, like I felt like I got more of a sense of the beasts themselves, which to me they all felt like they were more supporting characters because most of the beasts are like they exist in their chapter or their story and then you don't really hear about them again. I
Mm,
found them more interesting and overall and like I got to know them better than I did the actual like characters that carried through the majority of the story. Like with the narrator, I didn't have a sense of really who they were until the very end with Prime and Heartsick Beast. But by that point, you've devoted what 100, 150 pages to the book already.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I got a very good connection with the main character, that well, like you said,
Mhm.
like, until the very, very end where you learn more about her. Um, yeah, I don't know whether that's due to the translation or was just written in kind of like a more distanced way, I'm not sure, but
Yeah. I definitely got that
Yeah.
impression because there were like that we were just at a distance from the way she was feeling. A lot of
Mhm.
things that happened that I would have expected a lot of emotion from her about. We didn't really get to see how she actually reacted outside of that story.
Mhm.
Like a certain event or like something would be referenced, but we would never get to see her like actually react or process certain things, and I feel like that's what kept me from really being in her head.
yeah.
Yeah. Which I think that's part of why I like you guys gave it a 4 even if you rounded it up from a 3.5. For me it was a 2.5, but I am someone who is very like character driven. I do not
Mhm.
read much plot driven or anything else. Like for me having a very close relationship with the character, whether I like them or not, because I don't necessarily need a character to be likable to get along with
Mm,
the book, but I need to understand what makes them tick and what their motivation is. And I did feel very removed from this narrator, which I couldn't tell if it was because of the format, because it is kind of the beasts are really the focus of the stories, and then they're like you get little snippets about the narrator throughout until the end when it all comes together. But for me, that was a big stumbling point. Like to me, I need to get along with the narrator in some way, shape, or form.
That's a really
yeah.
interesting point. I hadn't thought about it being like so plot driven until you
Yeah.
said that. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely not character driven.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm usually more of a character-driven reader. I think maybe one of the reasons why Noelle and I liked it better than you is because we tend to lean more towards sci-fi fantasy books and
Mhm.
you don't. So
Don't.
maybe just
Literally don't.
because the genre is more to our tastes,
Yeah.
that might have influenced our
Yeah.
ratings.
I think I could maybe think of one other sci-fi book that I have read in my life, and it was assigned reading for class. Like I do not gravitate towards it at all. Fantasy, I've read a few more of, but I tell people it's fantasy light because it's like most of the time it's still in this world. It's just little
Yeah.
fantasy elements somewhere sprinkled in. So this was new territory for me. Completely. but but I mean that's kind of what this book club is about. So it was
Yeah.
it was worth the read. It was just a case of unfortunately it's not something that I would naturally gravitate towards in my own like reading.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, some of our next fantasy picks
No,
will be more to your liking.
I'm
even though we're
sure
making
there
you read
will.
poetry.
You are making me read poetry. It's fine. I'm willing to try anything once and then I'll be like, heck no, we're never doing it again.
Well, I don't even really read poetry, so I think
Yeah.
it's new for
Yeah.
all of us, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I guess this month I don't know, I mean, I saw some people on the Discord say that they really, really liked this book,
Mhm.
but, yeah, I guess it was a little more lukewarm than some of our previous books, but that's okay, that's
Yeah, no,
okay.
that's totally fine. And I mean, I do like not to spoil anything, but I do feel like the ending was like that was the sort of ending where it's like, okay, it's worth it to actually get here
Yeah.
because it was interesting. I did not see it coming. It was not at all predictable based on how the book was written. And so I was just like this was a nice refreshing like surprise. I was very into that part of it. So,
Mm,
Yeah. I think I might have liked this even more than Breasts and Eggs. Like this might be my favorite so far. I know.
Really?
I don't
Really?
know. I'm gonna have. They were both 4 stars, and I'm gonna have to marinate on my actual.
Interesting.
Oh,
Seeing the
wow.
surprise on both your faces was so funny just now.
I love Breast and Eggs. It's definitely
I
still my favorite that we've read so far. So
yeah, that one I enjoyed quite a bit. That was a
interesting.
good one. Now we'll need to know, like, you'll need to marinate on that a little bit and tell us in our next live show if you've come to a decision. Because now I really need to know.
I will let you know. I'll do some like Zen meditation on how I actually feel about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, what what made you like this book so much?
Yeah.
I am learning that I really like the short story format, like the connected story format, because in a lot of ways, like I didn't go into it knowing that they were connected stories and in a certain timeline. And so you kind of, as the book goes on, you realize how more and more it's really a novel, but the chapters each just focus on a different beast. And I really like that style of connected little vignettes in a character's life or in a focused situation. But I felt like there was a lot that could be dug into it of like we were saying, like what all of the beasts represent and what all of the metaphors were and all of the things going on in the city, which even the narrator refers to a couple of times, that the beasts are kind of these like lighthouses almost of like with was it the sacrificial beasts where they like a sacrificial beast would die and then there would be a bunch of suicides in the city,
Yeah.
or some of the other beasts like something would happen and it would cause this big wave of like a culture shift without even people really knowing that it came from a beast's influence. And I thought that was an interesting metaphor in itself, whereas Breasts and Eggs felt very like I knew exactly what it was trying to do, and I was happy to like sit and think about those and read the story how it was. But this one felt a lot more up for interpretation, and I enjoy that.
Yeah. I do think this one is like the embodiment of what like speculative fiction is. Like there's a lot of open-endedness and sort of ways of interpreting things, and kind of like everyone can look at this world and kind of take something different out of it because it's not as straightforward as a Breasts and Eggs, which definitely had like a clear mission statement from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That it
Yeah.
followed throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I usually like confusing books that like make you think, but yeah. I did like it. It made me think, but yeah, not as much as Breasts and Eggs. All right.
For sure.
So, I know before we went live, we were talking about keeping this maybe a bit shorter than other weeks. If anyone has anything else to say about the book, now's your time.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Now or forever. I know. Do you remember, or did we already talk about this? Do you remember your favorite and least favorite story, or favorite and least favorite beast?
I do think that the sacrificial beast one was the most memorable to me.
Yeah, that one was
Because I actually remember that one, and I don't remember any of the others. It was it was very disturbing, and sad, but I thought it was really, like, interesting and just kinda made me wonder how the author's mind worked. It was definitely a really interesting, short story out of all of them. So I think that was my favorite. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, no, that one definitely stuck out. And then I think we've already talked about Flourishing Beasts. which was the other one that stuck out to me, but I wasn't a huge fan of it, just overall. But like Sacrificial Beast was, I think, the point in the book where I was like, oh,
we're going there.
Yeah.
I was like, this escalated really quickly.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting this. Because it, like, that one felt very literal in some ways, whereas the other ones did not. Like, the names were a little bit more cloaked in what was actually going on. This was like, oh no, this checks out. This makes sense. But yeah, that one was where the book, I feel like, took a turn for me. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, definitely a darker book than I expected.
Yeah. It definitely went there. And I don't know why I didn't expect it, but I felt like I had like looked up some articles and things, and no one mentioned anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, like nowhere did it say, oh, this is a dark book. Nope, nothing. So
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I don't mind dark, but I was just not expecting it from this one. Like, I actually really enjoy dark, but not a chance, not a clue with this one.
Not a chance.
Not a chance, not a clue. I'm like looking at the back to see like if any of the little like quotes that they got say anything, but no. Dreamy, hypnotic. They use the words parable and dream. Daffy humor? Was there any part of this that was funny? Did I
Daffy humor? That's not what I would use to describe.
The quote is magical realism of the best kind, where the spectacular is paired with just enough irony and daffy humor to keep it grounded on Earth.
Irony, yes. But
irony, yes. Yes. Daffy humor?
I mean, it could just be the way that they talk to each other. Like they are constantly going back and forth and like bickering and bantering, but I wouldn't call that daffy humor. That seems
daffy generous. To me seems like cartoonish.
Yeah.
Like Daffy Duck. Like that's where Daffy takes me, and I'm just like, I don't. Clearly, I read a different book from the Wall Street Journal.
Interesting. I guess the open-endedness kind of allegorical work kind of has different interpretations to other people.
I mean, I feel like this is one of those books that, like, if you were like an English lit major and you were doing like comparative lit, like you would have a field day like dissecting this and trying to pick out like the allegory and the meanings of the different things. But I do think it's a book that requires probably a bit more like background work to contextualize than I realized going into it. And probably if I had done it, it might have been a different reading experience to me, because I do like those books that almost confuse you, but it's because they make you like really think hard about something. So
right.
Well, I'm glad Noelle really liked it. And Britt, I'm sorry you did not, but
it's fine. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. You know, at least I didn't like totally hate it, so that's good.
2 out of 3 of us isn't so bad.
Yeah. It was definitely worth the read, I feel.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, if does anyone have anything else to say about the book, or do you want to introduce next month's read?
We can. Do I have it?
Oh, did you already buy it?
I did buy it. I got it.
Yeah. Thank you, Britt.
It is very short.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yes, it is. How many pages? It's not even 100 pages.
Oh,
Nice.
perfect.
Good
And
job, us.
I will be taking notes so that I can remember things
I think
Yes.
I'm
for
gonna
the
start doing
live
that
show.
too. Yeah.
I'm gonna like annotate the crap out of this book because
Yeah.
that's the best way for me to understand poetry is to annotate the crap out of it. I've been really out of practice with my like annotating stuff because I usually am like flagging things like crazy and I usually have a system. I have not done that. Maybe I need to get back into the swing of it.
Yeah,
Poetry's gonna get
I
you
need
back in.
that. Yeah, so that's Iraqi Nights by
Mhm.
Dunya Mikhail,
Mhm.
and the live show for that will be on
The first
I think I'm
Tuesday
back
of
on
May.
back
on
on my channel. Yeah, first Tuesday of May.
awesome. All right. So, yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join us the first Tuesday in May on Noelle's channel for Iraqi Nights. All
Woo.
right.
Bye,
Yay. Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye.